Hello everybody and welcome to Omnipoke, the channel that brings you guys everything Pokemon. I'm Jack and today I'm here with another Guardians Rising deck analysis for you guys. This one's going to be on our Sylveon-GX sort of mill lock style deck. One that I think has been one of the most hyped cards out of Sun and Moon. Really good card. So yeah, let's jump straight into it. Starting off, of course, with 4 Eevee. This is the new Energy Evolution Eevee, of course. Not much to say about this guy other than the fact that the ability is just really strong. As soon as you have Eevee in play, provided you haven't got, we're running a single Wob in here, so provided you haven't got Wob in the active, if you can find yourself a Fairy Energy, you can go straight into Sylveon-GX, which is just really strong. It makes the deck a whole lot quicker. So yeah, moving on to the main Pokemon of the deck in general, there's not too much to say about Eevee. But yeah, moving on to Sylveon-GX, new GX Pokemon. Stage 1, 200 HP, which is huge, Fairy type. Metal Weakness, which is worth noting. There's no really good Metal Pokemon in the format right now, meaning that this guy essentially has no weakness, at least until we see a good Metal deck, which makes the 200 HP even more difficult to deal with. 3 really interesting attacks, or really good attacks. For 1 Fairy Energy, we have Magical Ribbon, which lets you search the deck for 3 cards and put them into your hand, which is just really strong. Tutoring out 3 cards, especially given that you can do it turn 1, because if you've managed to search, if you've managed to find a Fairy Energy, you managed to search Sylveon out, and evolve, and then start Magical Ribboning. So we can actually do this from turn 1 if we're going second. So tutoring out the exact card you need from turn 1 is just really strong. Gets around a lot of interesting archetypes coming out of Sun and Moon 2. But just in general, knowing you're going to have exactly what you want every turn that you want it is really good. Obviously, N is still a card, but your opponent only has finitely many Ns. Magical Ribbon can be used all the time, and if they're Nning you every turn, well, they're going to run out of Ns eventually, so you are going to eventually get Magical Ribbon value. Next up, for Fairy and DCE, we just have a simple 110 Fairy Wind. Like I say, just a pretty bog standard number. 110 is a really good number to hit though. Knocks out a Shaman for in 1 attack, which is really good. With the Vaporeon that you can see there, always one-shots a Volcanion, whether they have a Fury Belt on or not. So it is a relevant. It's like a relevant number. It's not a bad number. Just being able to one-bang a Shaman as well is really good. And then the GX attack is just super strong. Plea GX for the same energy, a Fairy and a DCE. Choose 2 of your opponent's bench Pokemon, put them back into their hand. That's just nuts. That sets back so many decks. Imagine 2 Volks sitting on the bench with 3 energy. Your opponent's picking up 2 Pokemon, 6 energy. That's 6 attachments that they're picking straight back up, which is just crucial for the game. It slows things down so much. And that's essentially what this deck is. Think of this as Quad Lapras, but your early turns, rather than collecting your Magical Ribboning, you're tutoring out exactly 3 that you need, as opposed to just collecting into 3 cards. Then your GX attack slows your opponent down further by making them lift up 2 of their Pokemon, put them back into their hand. And then you can, again, just consistently one-shot Shaman after one-shot Shaman after one-shot Shaman. There's none of this stuff like there is with Lapras where you can't attack for a turn or whatever. You can just consistently do 110 if you want. So yeah, a really strong attack. Plea GX is just insane. It just puts so many decks like a turn behind. Imagine a Yveltal just setting up as well. If they're committing all of their energy to 1 Pokemon, you can just Plea GX them, Plea GX it back into their hand. You can also Lysandre stall something and Plea GX their attacker as well. There's loads of really cool things you can do with this GX attack. And yeah, it's just a really disruptive attack. It means that they essentially have to be powering up 3 Pokemon to ever get a strong attacker out, which is just super strong. Because we're running the EVs, we're running 1 Vaporeon as well. Pretty much just for the Volk matchup. Volk is a difficult matchup still, even though you can Plea GX and it is crucial. It is pretty critical for them. Picking up 6 energy is huge. But that being said, it can still be difficult because they can ramp into their energy quite quickly with the Baby Volk. So this just helps with the numbers. You can also run a 1-1 Alolan Muck. I think this build of the deck right now doesn't necessarily need it, but I think more later down the line we are going to be looking at probably running a Alolan Muck in the deck, just to be able to try and help with Volk as well. But for now, one Vaporeon should do the trick. There's going to be a lot of other things out there at the moment that aren't Volk, so this is only really getting value in one matchup right now. Whereas eventually, when the format settles, it's likely that Alola Muck will get more value. So that's probably where the deck will go afterwards. But at the moment, this is just a win condition against Volk as well. 3 Tapu Lele, Lele GX. This is our GX of choice rather than Shaman EX. This is instead of Shaman EX, simply because you can tutor this guy out, and then you can tutor with his ability, I guess. You can Wonder Tag to search for the exact supporter you want. We've got a lot of disruptive supporters here. So being able to tutor into Sylveon, or Magical Ribbon into Sylveon, into Tapu Lele, sorry, and then use Tapu Lele's ability to find the exact disruptive supporter you want. It's just really, really strong. Really slows down the game for your opponent. We run DC as well, so we can actually use his attack as well. Don't run the energy to be able to use Tapu Cure. But yeah, just having another, or like an X-Ball style attack is also really, really nice to have. But yeah, just being able to Magical Ribbon into Tapu Lele for the exact disruption supporter you want next turn is super strong. And something that I think people will really struggle to deal with. Finally, we're running one Wob. Similarly to in Lapras, if you start this, it means that Decidueye has a really difficult time setting up. They can't snipe you, and they also, whilst they're not locking themselves out of items, they're not locking you out of items, which means you can start hammering away their energy and stuff. Also, in general, it's just a really disruptive card. Starting this against something like Ray is just super strong. Means that all of their Shamans are turned off. Means that they have to Lysandre for the turn rather than being able to use N or Sycamore to try and burn through their deck more and set up quicker. So yeah, it's just a really, really annoying card. Again, it's another one which means Baby Volks are going to only be hitting 20 against you in the early turns as well, which is going to make it really difficult for them to ramp against you. So in a deck like this, it's another nice starter. We're only running Psychic type support, Psychic type abilities other than the Vaporeon, I guess, but it's never really going to affect that. So we don't turn off our own Tapu Lele's. Another reason why we don't run Shaman. So yeah, it's just a nice Pokemon to have in the deck, a good starter against a lot of different archetypes right now. On to the supporters. As I was saying, lots of disruption. We've got 4 Flare Grunt. Think of this deck, as I say, like Lapras, except you search for 3 cards instead of collect. So yeah, 4 Flare Grunt, 3 N, no Sycamore. We don't want to be burning our own resources, we want to be burning our opponents. So ending ourselves is completely fine, because we're not going to be discarding things we need for later on in the game. So yeah, it's just nice shuffle draw. 2 Skull Grunt, again, really, really disruptive supporter. Decks will try and Shaman loop you as well, and this prevents them from doing that. But in general, it's just a really, really good supporter anyway. 2 Lysandre, gain disruption, really, really good. And being able to, like I say, because these guys can one-shot Shamans, being able to Lysandre for the Shaman for prizes as well means that the deck has another win condition other than just running your opponent out of resources. 1 Hex, combined with a Wob, it means that we can get around item lock. We don't rely on Wob. We can get around item lock through Tapu Lele into Hex, which is good. Also, it's another thing that helps us in the Volk matchup, which is really, really important. And just in general against things like Ray and Guardy. Again, being able to Hex turn 1 through Tapu Lele, making that a lot more consistent. It's going to slow our opponents down and mean that we can set up more consistently as well. So yeah, Hex is a really, really good one-of right now, especially with Lele in the format. Similarly with Delinquent, it's a disruption supporter. We can find it when we want with Lele. All of these one-off supporters are just so much better with Lele. But yeah, we can find it when we want. We can discard our opponent's stadiums. We're only running 1 stadium of our own, but we're running 1 stadium, 1 field blower, and then Delinquent. So it means that we can often win the stadium war just through being able to reuse these cards with puzzles and VS Seekers and things like that. And discarding 3 cards from your opponent's hand is really, really strong. 1 Handiwork, again, disruption. We win through mill quite a lot as well. But just in general, milling our opponent's resources again is just super strong. It's what the deck's all about, really. Slowing our opponent down, stalling them out, locking them out, running them out of energy, and forcing them to concede, essentially, a lot of the time. One Professor Kukui means that we actually have a matchup against Garb. Garb can sometimes be difficult if we can't find our Sylveon early. It means that we have to use a lot of items to do so. If we can find our Sylveon early, we can just search for the pieces we need, so we never have to use items or trainers, which means that the new Garb doesn't get any value. So, provided we find Sylveon, we have a matchup against Garb naturally, especially as we also have Kukui to be able to one-shot them. But this can just bring us back into the game, being able to consistently one-shot them too. And then against things like Baby Volk, Baby Yveltal, those kinds of things, being able to one-shot them with Sylveon's second attack, just means that we're not wasting a lot of damage, wasting 2 turns hitting into these Pokemon, provided we can find our Field Blower if they've got a Fury Belt or something like that. It means that we can continue to one-shot them and not lose too much tempo. And then finally, Judge. Judge is a really, really nice card, a game for disruption where N wouldn't do quite what you want it to do. So good turn 1 play as well if you don't want to play any of the other supporters. Lele into Judge, and then you're searching for 3 cards, so you're not really hurting yourself. You're drawing 4 cards and then searching for 3 cards, and putting your opponent at a 4-card hand. So yeah, again, all of these 1-off supporters with Lele just get so much better. But yeah, Judge is really, really nice. And in the mirror as well, if you know your opponent's cheated out 3 cards, you can judge them out of those cards as well. So Judge in the early turns is often going to be better as well. I keep saying Tutor, obviously tutoring is searching for the cards, but Magical Ribbon is the attack. Got 4 VS Seeker, pretty standard, there's nothing too much to say. Similarly to Quad Lapras, we're running 4 Puzzle as well, just to get these disruption resources back, annoy our opponents a little bit more, run them out of energy, run them out of cards, and win that way really. Also running, of course, 4 Crushing and 1 Enhanced Hammer, similarly with these disruption supporters and the puzzles and things like that, just running our opponent out of resources so they don't have any energy left, they can't win the game anymore. Running 3 Max Potion. The deck may look... It may seem weird running Max Potion in a deck like this, but the fact that you can search out for just 1 energy means that even if you do have 3 energy on a Sylveon, we don't mind Max Potioning and then going for just Magical Ribbon in that same turn. We can't take a prize, we can't play GX or anything like that, but it does mean we're setting up for the next turn. We can find Double Puzzle to find the DCE back, we can find... I don't know, whatever we need for the next turn. So Max Potion actually works really, really nicely in the deck. It means that these guys are so much tankier as well. Obviously, Lapras has... excuse me. Lapras has the sort of Fighting Fury Belt and Rough Seas support behind it. This has Max Potion and a huge amount of HP behind it. So if your opponent isn't one-shotting you, you can get value from Max Potion that way instead. 2 Ultra Balls, so as long as we have a lot of decent starters, but we want to be able to Ultra Ball to prevent ourselves benching. That's really, really important. That's one of Lapras's biggest loss conditions, is the fact that it can bench itself. So having Ultra Balls to be able to find more find more basics is important. Also really, really good with Lele, because it means that we can essentially turn an Ultra Ball into any supporter we want for the turn. So yeah, just a really, really good card. 1 Super Rod just for recovering energy once we've Max Potioned, recovering Sylveons once they've gone down, recovering things like the Tapu Lele and Vaporeon if we've had to discard them early, that kind of thing. 1 Field Blower, again a disruption supporter, means we win the Stadium War a bit more because we have puzzles plus Field Blower. Means we get around things like Fury Belt, things like EXP share that may stop our disruption, that kind of thing. Just a really, really nice one-off disruption item. 1 Parallel, simply because it's the best disruption supporter we've got right now, disruption stadium we've got right now, and there's no real better stadium for this deck. We're not going to have a huge bench, and we're not affected by the grass, water, fire typing, except in 1 matchup. So either side is often not too bad for us. A lot of the time we're going to be putting our opponent to 3 bench anyway, just because it means that they're not going to be able to Shaman out or Lele out or things like that of our lock. But yeah, the other side isn't relevant for us either, so either side is pretty good for the deck. and finally one Floatstone, just because we don't want to be Lysandre stalled out of the active. Also, we want to try and float Wobbufett if we can, just so we can get him out of the active and start attacking with Sylveon towards the mid game if we have started with Wobbufett. Finally, onto the energy. We're running 8 Fairy Energy and 2 DCE. The 8 Fairy just means we hit them pretty consistently in the early turns to be able to evolve Eevee into Sylveon early on. We have, obviously, naturally being able to see our opening hand, things like N, things like Lele, are going to mean we draw into the energy quite frequently naturally, so 8 is a good number. And then 2 DCE, just because it means that we can access these second attacks on Sylveon a little bit quicker, rather than having to attach 3 energy, which towards the mid to late game maybe we will be doing once we've used our puzzles and our DCEs. But in the early turns, it means we can apply pressure, and essentially we're not waiting around to play GX as soon as we want to, provided we've got 1 energy from one energy on already, which we're going to have through magic, because we're going to be magical ribboning anyway. It's going to mean we can just attach a DCE and set up Plea GX, slow our opponent down further, and that kind of thing. It's just really, really strong. It means that your opponent doesn't really see Plea GX coming all the time as well, because if you've got 2 energy on a Sylveon, they're of course going to see that a Plea GX is on the horizon. But if you've got 1, you're naturally going to have 1 anyway, just for the magical ribbon. But in this case, we can DCE and Plea when our opponent isn't expecting it, which is really, really good. Plea GX is just such a good attack. It's really, really disruptive. So yeah, I really, really enjoyed this deck. It's got nice turn 1 hands, surprisingly. It hits with Lele now. It hits a lot more things, a lot easier. And being able to search for the exact 3 cards you want next turn is really, really big, even with N in format. When our opponent's Nning, they're not doing other things like Sycamore or Lysandre or anything like that, and they're going to run out of Ns eventually. So even if they N you 7 times through running 3N and 4 VS Seeker, eventually you're still going to be able to magical ribbon that 8th time. So you are eventually going to get value out of that. And it's just wasting more of their resources. So yeah, I really, really like this deck. It's like Quad Lapras in that it tries to fatigue your opponent out, run your opponent out of cards, but it just searches exactly what Lapras wants each turn, which is just really, really strong. But yeah, thank you very much for watching. Let me know what you think of the deck. Leave it down in the comments. We want to know what you guys think of the deck. We've got a couple of ideas for Sylveon in the future as well. But yeah, thank you very much for watching. Stay tuned for more Guardians Rising deck analysis videos, daily videos in the next few days coming up. And yeah, let us know what you think of the deck. Thank you very much for watching. I've been Jack from Omnipoke, and I look forward to seeing you guys in another video.